All right, here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this amazing panel about VR and the discoverability of music. I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves, and then I will go into the title and kick everything off. So first of all, let's start with Heather.
Hi, my name is Heather, and I am the CEO of 99 Lives and the head of owned music at Songtrader, and we've placed music in music rhythm games, both VR and outside of it.
My name is Baxter. I'm the CEO of Atlas Rhythm. We are a creator of VR rhythm game content and creating a rhythm game ourselves.
Good morning. I'm Cameron Wood. I'm the COO of Kluge Interactive. We are the developer of a rhythm game called Synth Riders. A little closer?
A little bit closer, yeah. And my name is Noah Downs. I'm a lawyer, but I'm a cool lawyer. I work in the music, gaming, and tabletop space. I'm a video game and entertainment lawyer. And I work with a lot of these people up here, which is super fun. And you are at the panel, How Music Rhythm Games and VR Have Changed How We Experience and Discover Music. If that's not what you came for, stick around, because that's what you're here for now. So first of all, one of the things we want to dive into real quick is, what's the kind of the history behind music discovery, and how does VR and music rhythm games kind of fit in that history? And I'm going to kind of toss it to our panelists. Obviously, we have a presentation from Cameron, which we'll dive into it a little bit. So y'all take it away.
It's all you, Cameron.
Take away the panel?
Yeah, just take the panel away from me, please.
Yeah, okay. We're going to jump right into this?
Go for it, man.
Yeah, you've got the most comprehensive look at this, which is really fascinating.
Excellent. Great. Okay, so this is my take on it. As I'm going to show you, I have a somewhat odd entree into the...
You might want to go into the mic just a little bit more. You even take it off the thing and hold it.
Is it not on?
His mic's off?
Oh, it's hot.
Oh, no, his mic is hot. Thank you. Sorry,
Hello?
YouTube.
Hello?
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Peel one of these. Wow.
And there's another mask underneath.
How's that? That's probably
much
better.
better.
Hey.
Yeah.
Okay, VR, the next grade. Yes, so as I was saying, so this is very much a personal journey, my own experience into music discovery and the impact of technology in general, and how that influences how you get turned on to new songs and the sale of music. And so I was looking back when Heather invited me on this panel, and thank you, Heather, for being here. And this is my first MAGFest, so very excited. I love the vibe here. It's great. So when I'm looking at this subject, and I'm looking back over my own life and thinking, well, how did I discover music? And there is this sort of sensory transformation, these moments in your life when you start hearing music in a different way, or it sounds better, or through a different medium, and it has an impact and it lasts with you. And I think we're all experiencing that, and VR is one of those mediums that is around now that I think we really need to pay attention to, because in terms of making an impact, it is amazing. And I've seen it firsthand when I was demoing the games, and it's not going around. When we were a little boutique agency, a design agency at Kluge, there was this big internal debate about whether is VR going to be around? And at Christmas there was more downloads of the Oculus than any other app, and it's growing, and it's not going away. So you have to pay attention to it. You shouldn't ignore it. But I could totally understand why there's a lot of hesitancy to get into a new technology, because lately technology hasn't been that kind to the music industry. And I'm seeing this from my perspective, as I was saying, and so to give a little context of where I come from, back in 1995, when I was in New York, I was working for a Japanese TV company, so we're putting out content for terrestrial Japanese audience. And then I jumped to LA in 1997. I started working for a VC firm, and one of the companies we invested in was this co-location company called AboveNet, which we sold for $1.6 billion back in 1998. And then we did it again with a company called Overture, which was sort of, they pioneered pay-per-click. This was blowing me away. I didn't know this was possible, and I'm seeing this on the sidelines as this little peon in this VC shop. But I didn't get a chance to be a partner, so I'm still here working today because Lehman Brothers came along and wiped out the industry and sort of wiped out this firm I was at. But it was a very interesting perspective. You get to see how companies grow and influence a whole industry and a whole economy. And so I wanted to look at that in terms of the music industry. I joined Kluge in 2013, and we were a web shop, a creative design agency. And in 2016, we started dabbling in VR with our creative director, Abraham Aguero, and he created this experience called Atmospherics. And then in 2017, after dabbling in a few experiments, we started building Synth Riders. And Synth Riders really took off for us. From our perspective, we came from nowhere, and then we got on Oculus, and it grew. And thanks to Heather, in the early days, she was very supportive of us. We have a wide range. We have over 80 artists, sort of songs on the platform. But going back to my early life of this big picture of music and influence and discovery, I'm looking back at what it was for me. What was that sensory stimulation transformation for me? And it was this Pioneer record player. And my mother bought one for us in 1974, and she bought Explosive Hits 74, which was this album in Australia, a compilation album, and it had all these different artists. A lot of them were from America, and because of that, I became a hot chocolate fan. You know, I was really digging hot chocolate as this little kid in Victoria, rural Australia, getting turned on to hot chocolate, and it stuck with me. And then in '79, we have the Walkman, and you start consuming music on your own, in the train, on the bus, in a car to work, and you got it plugged into your ears, and it's bloody awesome. And then you have the advent of MTV. So you've got this stimulation of visuals, you've got this great sound, and it combines for very compelling music sales. And in '82, Michael Jackson comes out with Thriller. He really starts putting an effort and thought into the video, the visuals of it. So the sensory experience of the music is growing, is expanding. In Britney Spears, this was a really interesting one from my perspective because Jive Records was really not known that well. And they combined this great song, or compelling song, with the visuals that she choreographed, and she really influenced the making of that video. And for our perspective, we're sort of looking for this kind of combination. We're looking for artists that want to take on VR and understand how it can have an impact and how exciting it is to be in that medium. And we think big things are going to happen with it. Anyway, you see this chart here, and it sort of charts that MTV impact, and you see the cassettes coming up. You see the height of the music industry in 1999, right when Britney Spears came out. So there's a watermark from it. And then you see the decimation with the MP3s and the recording, but it's on its way up again. This is coming to 2017. And the other stat I'm looking at is just the size of the gaming industry. So 165 billion in the gaming industry, and it's just growing. And the VR is just a little. This is 7 billion of this 165 back in 2020, but it's more than doubled that already. It's growing at a clip, and it sort of dwarfs where just the record industry is, and you see it there, sort of in more detail. And then this interesting stat that just came out was that there were more Oculus Quest headsets sold than Xboxes in 2021. So it's just showing you how it is growing, and it's going to continue to grow, especially if you listen to Mr. Zuckerberg. He's very interested in the space.
Mr. Zuckerberg.
Mr. Zuckerberg.
Oh, Mr.
And so going back to Kluge, and when we were back in 2016, when we were building this VR, our first VR experience, we had a huge debate in the company of, is this something we should do? You know, should we even get into VR? Like, what do we know about video games? But Abraham, the creative director, was like, if you don't get into it, how are you going to, experience it? How are you going to learn? Because no one's going to pay us to do something we don't know what to do. We have to do it for ourselves. And he came out with the early stage of Synth Riders, and I started to demo it. I went to events sort of like this, but smaller ones around LA, and I would get people to try it out. And this is one girl who tried it out, and this was her response.
And what did you just play?
Synth Riders.
What did you think?
It was awesome. It was like feeling the music in my body and being one with the entirety of the space.
And so she sort of summed up that feeling really well. It was awesome. It was like feeling the music in my body and being one with the entirety of the space. And that is like, wow, that's a big thing. And when you did that, I would do that like 30 people, and they're all going, wow, this is amazing. I thought, we have something here. We've got to keep going with this. We can't abandon it. And then we meet Heather, and she starts telling us about licensing, because we really knew very little about it, and how you can make things easier. And then we started having fans like this Omati, who's a streamer in Japan, and here's how the game evolved. So there's a little insight to what it looks like within the game, and maybe you've seen clips like this, but I just wanted to play it.
Yep.
Okay, so that was Spectrum, and that was back in the early days. Heather was one of the first labels we worked with, and the game continued to get traction and continued to grow. But Heather really educated us and continues to do so, along with Noah, who Heather introduced us to, about the murky world of licensing and the challenges with it. And there's a lot of work to be done, but there's a lot of rewards and a lot of benefits if we could all get on the same page. And we're looking forward to that evolution, because there's this amplification and discovery. That Omati who put that video up, Omati put it up on Omati's own initiative, and there's this cool clip, and so people get to discover that music, that artist, through Omati putting that clip up. And if we have the license and we've paid for it and it gets taken down because of archaic systems, that gets very frustrating. If you support it, it gets found through all sorts of means. We have multiplayer. You can play the game with 10 other people, so you can turn your friends onto songs that you really like, so you get to experience that in the game, which is really powerful. You have Discord and streamers and YouTube and TikTok, and you even have the store itself. So here's a little screenshot of the Oculus store. This is their rhythm game section. So all these games are putting out content, needing music, and really, if they have artists that really work with the game, understanding what the game is like and the type of music that works well with it, it's a really win-win combination. This is a little screenshot of Synth Riders in multiplayer. This was demoing the Oculus avatars, which are really evolving. There's 37,000 people who've seen this clip by Otterworldly, and again, it's another YouTube streamer. There's podcasts like F Reality, and they all tweet, they're all big fans of VR, and they talk about it, and they talk about songs, and they talk about music, and they all need new content. So whenever a new song comes out, they're gonna pump it, and they need to be able to play it without it being taken down. And then here's a little screenshot of Twitch, and set over on the right, you're probably familiar with this, but everyone's talking about it, and it's getting amplified through fans playing the music. And unfortunately, you have situations where audio gets, taken down or blocked, and so the experience, you don't get to hear the song of these fans. And here's a little screenshot, and Heather can talk about this, just the approach that 99 Lives has taken to it of a sort of a one-stop shop. You do the licensing with 99 Lives, and it's taken care of. And we've seen that. It's the only label. When people say, what's safe to stream for us, we just point them to the 99 Lives catalog because they can play it and with no fear of it being taken down. And then, so all of this has been going on. So we launched in 2018, and then we started coming out with experiences. So songs that we really shape just for, one song. We create an experience for that song, and this is an example of that. So it's just the evolution of the video. And this is The Offspring come out and play, and you just see how that's evolved and where the possibility of it is going.
You gotta keep them separated. Separated. Hey! The man you disrespecting me. Take him out. You gotta keep them separated. Hey! Don't pay no mind. We're rendering to you what we do it anytime. Hey! Come on and play. It's already too late. One goes to the morgue and the other in jail. One guy's wasted and the other's a waste. It goes down the same as the thousand before. No one's getting more, no one's getting this more. Everything is free of death and violence and hate. It's gonna tie your own rope, tie your own rope, tie your own. Hey! And you're disrespecting me. Check them out. Gotta keep them separated. Gotta keep them separated. Hey, they don't mind. You're rendering to you what we do it anytime. Hey, come out and it goes down the same as the thousand before. No one's gonna swallow, no one's running the store. Whatever it is, free of death and violence and hate. He's gonna tie your own rope, tie your own rope, tie your own. Hey! And you're talking back to me. Check them out. Gotta keep them separated. Hey! And you're disrespecting me. Check them out. Gotta keep them separated. Hey! They don't mind. You're rendering to you what we do it anytime. Hey! Come on and play.
That was awesome.
And that was Nazy. That was Nazy.
Wait
And
till
that's
you
it.
play
Let's
it. It's
just-
super trippy.
So basically, and Cameron, holy crap, that was a great presentation. Thank you. That was awesome. So essentially what we're hearing is that, from the advent of VR, putting games out, one of the problems that you ran into was, you want to have that additional discovery through streaming, through other creators' content, and so you were running into mutes and copyright claims as well, which is how you ended up working with Heather and 99 Lives and all that stuff. One of the things that I think it would be super interesting to talk about is how you actually get to the point where you have a game like this, and that really comes through the concept of mapping and the idea of mapping. So I want to toss this over to Baxter. What is mapping, and how does a well-crafted map affect a player's relationship with music discovery?
Sure. So mapping, I'm a beat mapper in these circles. I don't have a technical background, but I found this creative way of expression, and it's been very gratifying ever since early 2018. But beat mapping is the artistic process whereby we are arranging the objects and patterns, objects into patterns that the player interacts with in the game. So what you were seeing there in that last clip, that was a beat map. The earlier clip as well was a beat map for Synth Riders. Actually, shout out to Little Aussie. I know the mapper on that one. So it is sort of the layered, it's the enhancement of the music. It is how we are enhancing the experience. We're making it a full body experience through the beat mapping. And do you want me to just get right into?
Yeah, I mean, this is part of your presentation now, so go for it, buddy. I told you, it's going to be an audio-visual smorgasbord.
Yeah, well, he kind of gets like set up, just like, I'm sure you're kind of picking up on a theme, but like a lot of what discovery with music happens is when you make an emotional connection. And the whole mapping experience and playing the games is kind of has what shifted discovery considerably. And Baxter talks quite a bit about how they form that emotional connection. And it's incredibly fascinating because it does completely reshape your connection with the song.
Go ahead, Baxter. Take it away, my friend.
Okay, so as a beat mapper, what I'm going to try to do is kind of give you some of the method to my madness, what's going to the thought process when I'm creating a map, the experience that I'm trying to give the player. And by doing that, I will be discussing some of the rhythm games that we've created content for over the past few years. So let's start with one called Boombox. Now, Boombox is a game that was released last year. It is, you've got these drum pad appearing targets that approach you, that you hit with your mallets or batons, whatever they are, that can appear in different ways. You're dodging these walls with your headset, so it creates some body movement. And you can, as we will see, you can produce some fairly dense maps with this style. The targets are arranged in an oval around the player as they're coming at you. And this map that you're seeing right now, this is a map that we created recently for Boombox's Christmas download pack. And Boombox, by the way, is available on the App Lab, Quest App Lab, or on Steam or the Rift Store. So what we're going to do, we'll just go through a few of the clips, and I'll comment a little bit on what the player is doing and kind of the experience that we're going through.
I also want to ask, in that last clip, was that a dog that ran along with you?
Yeah, I forgot to mention Poopa, the cat.
So that's a cat, okay.
A feline companion along for the adventure.
That's amazing.
The developers actually that's their cat, Poopa. And they've integrated the cat into the game, and it showed up in every meeting that we had with them.
That's amazing.
They're
Very
great, by the way.
adorable.
Very, very responsive developers. All right, so in this clip, you're seeing the player, they're getting into a groove here. You've got some symmetrical patterns taking them back and forth, but here you see a little bit of a stutter step going on here. She's a little bit unsure about what she's doing, but that's why we have repetition in these maps. It's very important. Just as music repeats, we want repeating patterns. People like what is familiar. They like to feel like they are succeeding. And so after she gets past that little stutter spot, she gets into her rhythm. You'll start seeing her feet move a little bit more symmetrically, side to side. And that's what we're going for. That's when you know that the person has entered that state of flow. The flow is that hyper-focused state where you're fully engrossed and immersed in your activity. You sort of lose sense of time. And we'll be talking about that quite a bit during the presentation.
And also just checking and make sure everybody in the back can hear through the mic as well. Good? Okay, cool.
Cool.
Great.
And save questions for later. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure. Sorry about that. Okay, so here's a little bit later in the map, and you can see that she's hit her stride. She's got a groove going on. Again, we've got the symmetrical patterns, the back and forth movement. She's shaking her hips, and you can often tell when someone has hit that flow in the map. It doesn't take a lot of movement to feel like you are dancing in these games, and that's part of the magic of VR. Is you can just do these subtle movements and feel like you're a badass ninja, right? When in reality you're not. You don't look as graceful as she does. I don't, for sure. You'll see later. But that's the magic of VR. Is your brain fills in the blanks. Like your visual space is completely occupied by the headset, and you have this haptic feedback going on. So it doesn't take much to convince you that you are that badass ninja.
That's awesome.
Now I'm going to show a
Technical
little
term.
bit from a first-person perspective of this map. This is the highest. All right, so that probably looked like a chaotic mess, but when you are playing at master level on these games, this is the master level for this map, you have trained your brain to process this information. So at this point, you are just reacting effortlessly to these targets. You're not thinking down, 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 up, up, down, down, up, up. That's not happening. You are just reacting as these targets fly at you. And if you can believe it, this approach speed that you're seeing for these targets, it's fairly low. When I was testing this map before it was released, I would have a much higher approach speed that spaces the targets out a bit much. It forces you to swing more quickly. You have a shorter window of opportunity in which to execute. But that's part of the magic, and it's a how to describe it? It's a very stimulating experience when you are executing at this level and just hitting all the targets. So
That's intense.
I like how you use the term stimulating and it's not overwhelming, but
Well, we are at MAGFest, so.
all right, so you have that's the ending of the song. This song, by the way, is over 7 minutes long. That's well above average for rhythm games and for music in general, I suppose. So it is an endurance challenge, and by the end here, you got this enduring squat to pair with that, the sort of lingering thing going on in the background there. And you hear some misses. She has an interesting miss sound that she modded there. But yeah, the player is fatigued by this point, understandably. But you do feel a sense of accomplishment when you've gotten to the end of a map and you've passed it. So, all right, so that's Boombox. I also want to talk about another game that we've developed content for. It's called Supernatural. So this is available on the Quest. It's a fitness-oriented rhythm game. It offers a flow style. This is me in my living room playing so you're hitting these targets. They're kind of cone-shaped, which indicates the direction of your swing. You've got some tails that come off. Some targets indicate where you should be swinging. I'm doing this from the comfort of my living room, so it's very accessible. And the triangles that you see here, that sort of leads you into squats and lunges and side steps, side to side. So same thing as before. Let's go through a few clips of this map, and I'll kind of explain what is going on and what we're going for. All right, so this is the intro section, and you've got these targets and these tails forcing these big swings. I'm bringing the body back and forth. I'm getting some weight shifting going on. That's very important. You want to get players' weight shifting back and forth. It feels like dancing. And you hear this hiss going on in the background. It starts at some point here. But what's happening with the controllers is they are vibrating while you're tracing those scales. So that gives you an opportunity to pair certain musical elements with that vibration. So it adds to the experience and it makes people feel like they are doing something. All right, so let's go to the next clip.
This house party is crazy. My crew is hella wavy. Yo, flip the cup, then say what's up, then slide out with your lady. No ifs or buts about it. My style is technotronic. Got grips and models, so spin the bottle, girl. I'm just getting started.
All right, so this is the first verse. I'm trying to stay somewhat consistent with how I'm mapping repeating sections within, repeating elements within a section, such as a verse. And what you'll notice is I'm not necessarily mapping to the beats, well, it is on beat, but I'm not mapping necessarily to the drums or the percussion. So there is sort of a deliberative process that goes on for the mapper. What am I going to attract? There may, some rhythm game theorists will say, well, we must map to the drums. But, reasonable minds can differ, I think, and the most important thing is that you're creating an experience.
Your audio is a little bit low. Yeah. You might want to turn the song down a little bit. You get a little hard. There you go.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. So, all right, and, getting a lot of these cross-body motions going on as you swing your arms back and forth going through these lunges, you are giving yourself a really good core workout because as you're swinging your arms, you're creating a lot of momentum, and you have to counteract that somehow, and that comes from your core, and that's where most of the exercise component from these games comes from. I think is these forces that you're exerting on your body that you have to account for. So let's look at the next one.
Pump the volume, feel the bass. Turn me on and let me do my thing. We in the house and we here to stay.
All right, so this is sort of the build, and what I wanted to do here was what I call a traveling section. So I'm taking the player from front-facing all the way to rear-facing in 45-degree intervals. There's this get up, and on the up there's this pause. So I thought, okay, here's a good opportunity to do a turn. So I do these hits with the tails coming off them, and it brings the player around. It gives them time to reorient in the new direction before they get hit in the face with more targets. So that's important. You want to make sure the map is readable. If people feel like they're just getting overwhelmed and it's not fair, then they're not going to have a good experience. All right, so this is the drop section, and you might have heard the trainer there. It's like, if you're not already out of breath, then you need to catch up or something. Well, I am out of breath by this point. And it may not look like I'm doing much, it's just back and forth and, kind of up and down. I'm swinging my arms, but, go into a corner, swing your arms around and squat every 10 seconds for about 10 minutes straight. You will have a workout.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll be bored as hell, but you will have had a workout. And that's the magic of these games is it takes the boredom out of it. I mean, you're really working your body. But it doesn't feel like it, and so you get into that state of flow, that immersion, and an hour goes by, and it's like, wow, what just happened? And after about an hour, you should probably take a break. I mean, we could play WoW for 8 hours, and not blink, but but with these games, it's a very active activity. So, yeah. All right, let's go to the next clip.
We ain't going home. It's 6 in the morning. This house is bumping. Trying to get the fiction. We ain't going home. Even when the lights come on. This house is bumping. Man, it's still going strong.
All right, so this is the outro. It's a little bit different. So it allowed for some different patterning here. I wanted to get the body a little bit twisty with that sassy stuff on the going home part, so it's kind of the up-down movements going on there. And what's important to recognize here is, or one thing that they do in Supernatural is they place these special targets at the end that explode into like bubbles or butterflies or something. And that, pairing that with finishing the map is actually, it's really smart because it enhances the experience. It adds a positive association to what the player is already experiencing as positive, which is accomplishing something. And yeah, people love those things. So so Supernatural, it's a really great, aside from being, the fitness benefits and, it's not just Supernatural that you get these benefits from. I mean, all these games, Synth Riders, Beat Saber, all of them, if you are moving your body in this way and you're keeping your core engaged, you are going to get a really good workout. And people are recognizing that, and it's really taking off. So, all right, so a little bit about Atlas Rhythm. That's the company that we founded in 2020. So we came from some of the modding communities that sprang up around the rhythm games in early 2018. We've been creating our own rhythm game starting last year in collaboration with 99 Lives. And I want to show you a little demo of what we're working on. And it's actually to one of the 99 Lives tracks. It's called Imagination by Electronomia. So
Nice.
let's take a look at that. All right, so that's a little prototype of what we've got going so far. It's a map that I created, and so we've got you've got these rings here that kind of collapse and expand into different shapes. The idea is to put your head through them. So again, we have a way to control the body movement in that sense. We've got these directional targets shaped as arrows that you swing into, often paired with ribbons, which allow us to control the arm movement and trace things. Got these mini black holes for fun. Again, controlling the body like that. And so it's, then you'll see here that we have the 360-degree mode, which allows for a lot of pattern variety, movement variety, getting the player rotating in their space if they can. So it's really fun so far. We're excited about it.
That's cool.
And just, I want to go over a few sort of feedback that we see on some of the maps that we've done. So, and this speaks to how people are discovering music. So, just so you know, Supernatural has a average. I think the average user age is like 50. So this appeals to a higher demographic, and you really know you're onto something when you've got an older demographic that is adopting new technology. So that number may be coming down now. It's becoming much more popular. But here you see, beyond the profound physical and wellness transformation, Supernatural has me completely transformed and at this point transfixed with EDM music. So this is someone, I don't know how old they are, but probably well over 40 or 50. And they're talking about these tracks. Feel the Love is one that we did. The Centipede by Night Party is one we did. And they would never listen to this music on their own, but because it's in this medium, they discover it and they love it. Another comment here, these choreographers are creating works of art. Thank you so much for putting love into your work. So that's really gratifying for mappers to see, because it is really a work. We feel like it's art. I mean, we're putting our heart and soul into this work. Another comment here on Centipede, I believe. And here I like the comment. It says, "Not my style of music in the least, but I love working out to the track. There's a certain powerful feeling that I get with that song." And so again, the map is providing an experience that draws the player to the music that they would not otherwise have. So and there's another one, just briefly. Brief shout out to something called Rhythmly. It's coming out next week. It's I just finished judging the submissions for this, so it's a submission of a bunch of different performances to various rhythm games in categories like dance, martial arts, technical. Many of the 99 Lives tracks are going to be featured, which is great. And I've listened to those tracks so much by this point that they sound mainstream to me. And so when I see them in maps, I'm like, oh wow, that's great. It comes to life for me. So it's been really gratifying. So yeah, check that out. You can go to the website to get more info. But on January 12th, this next week, there will be an airing of that.
Awesome.
So
Cool.
I've got other thoughts, but let's turn it back here.
Yeah, thank you, Baxter. That's awesome. So basically, now you've kind of seen a little bit of the mapping background and the mind of the mapper. I kind of wanted to talk about, in terms of from the label perspective, Heather. We've heard so much about 99 Lives. We've heard a bunch of 99 Lives tracks now. So how does mapping and Rhythm VR help a label grow, and kind of is it like a symbiotic relationship? I hope it is.
Very much so.
So go for it.
Yeah, so with regards to music discovery, right, like we had the advent of compact discs and Walkman, and then, live shows are a really cool emotional experience that form an attachment with the song. And then you saw the advent of streaming, which for the music industry, as you saw on that graph, was a really rough time for us. While it made music more accessible, it devalued music in a way that none of us were really expecting. And over the past probably decade or so, we've seen a revival of vinyl and older formats that have supported the industry consistently. And that even, seeing the platforms like Apple start to support artists a little bit more than we had originally gotten when they first came out. But like that, we're constantly trying to find the next way to engage an audience and form that emotional connection with our music. And VR is uniquely multisensory, right? Like you go to a concert, like how many here have been to EDC? Some people?
So one person.
Okay.
Talk to another person.
I never
know you.
used to listen to EDM until I went to EDC. And when I went to EDC, there was a connection formed by the experience, by the lights, by feeling the bass, just by the energy and the people and just the fun, that became a genre that landed in my playlist more often. And VR has started to become that same type of experience for a lot of our audience. And we've tried working with content creators, and while having our music played during Twitch broadcasts is great, I don't know of a lot of people that have listened to a Twitch broadcast, heard a song that was playing in the background and gone, oh my God, I need that in my playlist. But I've seen a ton of people watch VR rhythm content creators, watch them play the experience, go, I need to play that map, and then land that song in their playlist. So for example, Paris Nightwalk by Roy was one of the tracks we landed with Synth Riders, and it was a track that had done fairly okay, but it was a unique track for our repertoire. It was electro swing.
It's awesome. It's a great track.
It's a unique track. It's different from what our audience is used to. And so while people listened to it because they were fans of 99 Lives and fans of Roy, it wasn't like their top favorite. We landed it in Synth Riders, and we saw our playlist double probably over the course of like 2 or 3 weeks after it went live. People were adding it to their playlist, and specifically to like gaming, streaming, and they had created their own Synth Riders playlist. And those things are incredibly valuable to the music industry because that's what sparks Spotify's algorithm. Yeah. And since then, it's been kind of like this really cool roller coaster to watch that song periodically as content creators use it, gain more traction in Spotify. And we've never been able to correlate that with just standard broadcast and Twitch content creators.
And I will add, like, as someone who both works with these companies and also consumes that content, seeing songs like that and seeing experiences on TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, etc. Not only do I have a relationship or a pseudo para relationship with the broadcaster through chat, but also I get to experience their highs and lows too. And so having that plus then being able to go and play it itself really just creates an ecosystem for the song that leads to more discoverability, leads to people really connecting with it. And I've seen it work, like this relationship of these three folks up here makes music more accessible to larger audiences, which is incredible. By the way, just want to really quickly again shout out Paris Night Walk by Roy. Go listen to that track. It's my favorite track in the Nine Nine Lives catalog. So I had another question for you. So what is the translation between sync placements in the rhythm games and outside revenue sources like Spotify? And just so y'all know, sync placements are synchronization licenses that are issued, and it's really a lucrative license for catalogs and stuff like that.
Yeah, so in film and television, when we have a sync placement, we see a little bit of traction, but most of the revenue comes from public performance payouts, right? Or the initial sync placement itself. With the VR music rhythm games and even just like music rhythm games like Just Shapes and Beats, we see traction with adding to playlists, increased plays on Spotify, increased plays on Apple Music, increased number of downloads, and tons of traction on YouTube and Twitch, which is uniquely different than standard sync placements that we see elsewhere. And that's been a cool correlation because for the most part, we haven't really been able to attribute anything in the gaming industry to significantly positive increases for revenue sources outside of it up until this point. And that's been very, very different with music rhythm games. And possibly because the music is a huge core focus of the placement itself. It's the user, the map, and the music, and that's the focus.
And I'll do one last lightning round question, open up to the full panel before we get into questions. So if you have a question, start thinking about it now. What really quickly, like 2 sentences or less, do you think is the future of rhythm gaming, especially with VR frontiers like the metaverse opening up?
This is going to sound super biased, but the experience that Synth Riders built, where you actually not only have the map, but you have the elements that respond to different beats and, you know, sections of the music, that was trippy. Like I saw it on YouTube and then I played it and I had goosebumps. It was just different. I don't know how to explain it, but it was huge. It was monumental.
Yeah, I think it's a very bright future, and it's just more and more collaboration because you play this experience once and it's going to stick with you. And when artists realize that and you collaborate together, great things are going to happen.
Yeah, no, I think this is the future of music experience. I mean, look at what we're wearing. You know, I think you'll be seeing a lot more virtual concerts and made people incorporate. You know, VR rhythm game into that. People can participate, you know, through that. So I expect esport genres to be created around this. I expect new music genres to be created around, to created for rhythm games specifically. So, you know, we're just at the beginning of this.
Yeah, and you know, maybe some of those VR concerts you can get into using NFTs as your ticket. Boom, the world. So I want to throw it out for questions real quick, and obviously y'all are out there, this is being recorded for YouTube. So when you have a question, raise your hand and I will repeat it for the camera and then we'll answer it. We've got about 10 minutes for those. So question right there. Gotcha. So the question is, a lot of the music that's showcased and a lot of stuff that we see is upbeat, hype tracks, that kind of stuff. How do you incorporate and what do you see as being the future in VR for slower songs as well?
I can jump in on that. I think that presents a challenge on the game developer side. So if you create a game whose objects and the animations and the sound effects are such that they can accommodate that type of music, so that they aren't overpowering that type of music, that's where you get the match. So there are games like that, and different games due to their dynamics will support different genres of music. But like I said, we're only at the beginning. And I expect there will be other games that will be developed to accommodate a wider variety of music.
I also think that specific games that have more fluid moments movements will probably be more conducive to that type of genre. So something like Beat Saber is probably not going to adopt dream pop as their as songs for their mapping purposes, but like Synth Riders, where you have the rails that give you very fluid moments and very dance-like movements. Yeah, I think it just depends on the game. I don't think music for every genre is going to be a fit for every game. I think it's very much like film and television. It's going to depend on the game.
That's interesting. Cool. I saw a hand over there. Yes.
How many times do you think people have actually hit windows or other things with their controllers?
So the question is, how many times do you think people have actually hit windows, TVs, etc., caused destruction with their controllers while playing these VR games?
I have a crack in my Panasonic Plasma
Oh no.
from a controller. Use the straps.
Yeah.
I think everyone experiences this, whether it's, you knock your nephew on the head, or
Yeah.
or a pet, or something, someone who wanders into your play space.
Yep, you just punch
I busted
somebody.
a controller. That's how I got into mapping. I busted my controller, and so while it was repairing, I needed my fix. So
Oh my
Mapped.
God. Cool. What do you think, Cameron?
No, definitely. I've got some sore knuckles and had some experiences myself. So I think it's quite common. And you do have to be very careful. And I've demoed it a lot. So I've seen people, when they're playing their game, they have a tendency to keep walking forward. They want to, they're so keen to do well that they keep, and so I have to keep pulling them back. But I'm watching them, so I see that happen all the time.
Strap them into like a bungee cord from the back or something like that. That'll be funny.
That's right.
Thank you, Ten. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering about the process of music production, mapping,
Gotcha.
because right now, well, I actually don't know. I would love to hear more about from George, your thing, the mapper, what the collaboration or disjunction is between when a producer finishes a song and when you begin mapping for it and creating an experience, creating an experience for that piece of music. Because I guess right now it can be a little bit discreet if you get a label that just finishes the song and then you get it, and that's kind of like the end of the project for them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That means that you are, I guess maybe transcribing, taking it on separately. But is there a sense of like melding of these processes, right? Collaborate with the artists to produce music that can be mapped and experienced in a certain way.
I'll answer. Yeah, so the question is, and I think there was a few questions in there. One was, what's the process of music production to mapping to appearing in a VR game? And is it more collaborative or is it separate and distinct processes? And I'll go ahead and actually jump in on this one a little bit. When it is a distinct process in between, and frankly, even when it's not, there's a lot of licensing and contracts involved because, there's other, the music is not just going to be in VR. It is going to be distributed elsewhere. So everyone wants to make sure that there is a separate and distinct part of the contract pie. That might change over time. But right now, in terms of the legal side, they do try and divvy it up a bit, even if they're making things concurrently.
And actually, Baxter, I want to have him talk about this because we actually had a project where they had mapped songs, and those songs they couldn't license. So they brought the maps to us and our artists and said, is there anything you can make of this? And I think so talk about that.
Yeah, we
is
did
really
we
interesting.
call it maps to music. So we did a proof of concept back in 2020. I had mapped something in Beat Saber. We removed the audio and we just delivered to musicians essentially the beat track. So the objects and the tick sounds that they would create that had been arranged, and then that formed inspiration for new music, and it worked. It was surprising, but it worked. So, but the collaboration that you're talking about, other than that sort of proof of concept, I'm not aware of that happening yet, but it should happen. I think it should be a collaborative process. It would be interesting for mappers and musicians to get together, and the musician might start and say, well, here's my idea. The mapper can kind of riff on that and say, oh, let's do this, because for a mapper, we want interesting rhythms. We don't want a lot of downtime in the song. Not super extended intros that don't have a lot going on. That's difficult to map to. So we do have some preferences, And I'm interested to see, what comes out of that sort of collaboration. But to date, we have just been sort of delivered music and we map it, which is also great. I mean, it's when I mapped Centipede, I wasn't a huge fan of that music when I first got it, but I gave myself a theme. I'm like, oh, what does a centipede do? So that was a theme I gave myself, and so I crafted the map based on that approach. So yeah, I'm very interested to see where that goes.
And there's a reason why EDM is featured in Supernatural. It's great to map when you have this steady beat. The mapper's job is much easier. When we were doing the Epitaph pack, the Adrenaline, you're mapping and you're going down to milliseconds of mapping where the note's coming. You notice the variation, or you think of a jazz tune and how that varies in the tempo. It can be really emotionally impactful, but for the mappers it's a nightmare. It's very difficult to map some older songs because of the variation in the tempo. So that's also an interesting sort of challenge or constraint.
Yeah, BPM changes, you want to go easy on those.
But it's not to say that you shouldn't do that, because
Yeah.
I think there's a huge audience, and I think as the industry matures and having an experience for one song, one of the things for Synth Riders is we need a faster song because there are 5 levels, and that's what our players are used to. And so to have 5 levels, you need a faster rhythm. If it's slower, then you can't. But that's not to say there's not an audience for that. I think that the biggest audience is people who just love a certain song and want to play it in the game, and that's going to come.
Cool. Yes.
Because people are engaging with music in a way that's like profoundly different than they've ever engaged with it before, and you guys are truly creating and curating this new space of engagement. Is there ever, how much thought is put to like gamification, to how people are engaging to just like the songs itself? Like, I know because there's lots of people who are bringing in input. Like, what happens when all those things are brought together to make what you guys are making?
So yeah, the question, and correct me if I'm wrong, is in terms of when all these disparate pieces come together into the gamification, what is the experience like for everybody creating the game as well, and what does that look like from a practical perspective?
From the practical perspective, it's like we have a community. So, and the mappers play a big part of it, because if you're putting 50 hours into a song, and there was self-esteem, and you stop feeling good about yourself because it's like driving you nuts. It can really be wearying. So there's this sense of the mapper needs to, and you can like the song, but you're with it for a long time and you're very close to it. So we have to listen to the mappers. We have to, our biggest challenge is who can we get licensing deals with? There's so many people that have no idea what VR is. They don't care about it, and we've got to talk. We've got 50 contracts to nail down for a 5-pack music song. So that's like, oh man. We just deal with Heather. It's one person. She takes care of 10 songs. But we do want to bring in other genres and other music. So there's that element.
And I will also add to that contract negotiation thing is that because it's still a relatively new frontier, one of the things that I'm helping some of these folks overcome, or that we're facing together, is that when we approach a label and say, hey, we would love to include you in a VR rhythm game, they say, okay, and then they name some fairly outrageous number for like a percentage or a licensing fee, because they don't have a frame of reference based on what they're doing, and they're trying to recover, as you saw from the presentation, from a massive dip in the music industry.
Yep. Yeah, the sync is a free market, and there are no standards around video games as of right now, and film and television is a big chunk of change.
Yeah. So.
And then the biggest piece is Abraham, the creator. It really is an offshoot. It's still his baby, and the music has to appeal to him.
Right.
So there's a number of people we're checking with, and all the dots have to line up. But Abraham, at the end of the day, he has to get into it. And so we're very much, this is a game in Abraham's head, and it's an extension of that.
Cool. Go ahead, bud.
I think that'll have to be our last.
Yeah, this will be our last question.
What would you describe each rhythm game as having as the dominant genre? Like, this game is largely this, and this game is largely that. And what genres would you like to see more representation of, or at least experiment with trying to find some way to integrate?
Yeah, so the question is which, and I think the first part is, which do you see games as having a predominant genre? Like you can say this game has this genre, this game has this genre, that pop into your mind, obviously. And then what genres of music would you like to see better represented in the VR space?
That's a pretty broad question, but I would say in general EDM has been most
For like all of them.
popular.
Yeah.
For these games. But
It's also the easiest to license for the most part.
Yeah, but the games themselves, the existing titles can accommodate a wide variety of music. So, the sky's the limit. And like I said, I expect other music genres to be, enhanced or developed, in response to this new space.
I'd like to see more dream pop and K-pop. I won't lie. Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you all so much for coming. We
Thank
are
you
all
for
available.
listening to
I'll quickly do shout outs so where you can find all of us. Baxter, where can people find you?
AtlasRhythm.com. That'll contain links to any sort of contact or social media that I have.
Awesome.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, and we're at Synth Riders VR or hello at Kluge Interactive.
You can find 99 Lives at 99 Live on Twitter, Instagram, etc. And I'm Red Montag on those platforms.
And on Twitch, Twitter, and TikTok, I am my lawyer friend. So thank you all so much. You've been wonderful. And
Thank you, Noah.
Happy MAGFest.